Gosh, it's not like punk rock, Ethan.
Sure it is. Why not?
Nobody wants to hire a folk singer named, Transmissible Virus or something.
From NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing in Saranac Lake, this is the Howl Podcast. I'm Ethan Shantie. Today's going to sound a little bit different because we have, for the first time ever, a musical guest on the podcast. I've known Barb Heller for about 8 years. That's when I got to the station. And although we got along really well, I didn't at first think that we had a whole lot in common musically. Barb is in the bluegrass tradition, and she hosts a bluegrass show called String Fever here on NCPR. That's Thursday afternoons from 3 to 5, by the way. And as for me, you know by now that I'm very much rooted in the punk tradition. But after some really in-depth conversations and also sharing a bluegrass/punk crossover show on her program String Fever, I realized actually we're not that far off from one another. We've both been touring for most of our lives, making long drives to play sometimes to small crowds, sometimes to big crowds, sleeping on friends' couches, sometimes working multiple jobs to get by while trying to make a go at music. And more than anything, we're both just passionate about performing. I can't imagine not doing it. That being said, life on the road is sometimes really difficult and sometimes it is plain ridiculous. So I've invited Barb into the studio today to talk about touring and hear some of her music. Hey, Barb.
Hi, Ethan. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
So, Barb, how many years have you been playing live music? And has it always been solo or duo, or were you with bands before?
Wow, that's a lot of questions.
Sorry.
I got my first guitar when I was 11. And I would say, I played in my music class at school when I was probably 12. And then, I don't know, then you go from there. So I've been performing in one group or another all the way through high school and then college. And then that was many decades ago.
So for the most part, has it been solo or usually with bands?
It's been a mix of different things. For a few years, I played in a trio and then a duo. And off and on, I perform with different people and have still off and on through the years. But I would say for the last 30 years or so, solo performing has really been my bread and butter.
What is your favorite band name that you've ever had?
Ever had?
Yeah.
Gosh, it's not like punk rock, Ethan.
Sure it is. Why not?
Nobody wants to hire a folk singer named Transmissible Virus or something.
Okay, well, so for example, I'm in a band right now. It's called Spit Vision, which is disgusting,
Oh.
but it's my favorite name that we've ever come up with. I think
Wow.
it just sort of like is brash and it's in your face.
Yeah, I go by Barb Heller. I've been in a couple bands. One was called Souvenir, a trio, and I play with a group called the Mockingbird Band, and that's a lot of fun. But I just like the name because it sounds like a bunch of birds chirping.
Yeah.
It's a lot like people singing together.
So I've had a lot of really strange experiences on the road touring. Like I said, sleeping on friends' couches, or like this one time we hit up a friend in Pittsburgh. We had stayed with him previously and we were hoping to crash on his floor or crash on his couch. And he said, listen, I've moved into a smaller apartment now, so I don't have room for all of you guys. I think there were 5 of us who were on the tour at that time. And he said, but my dad has purchased an old high school and he's renovating it into apartments. Those aren't finished yet, so you can't stay there. But he hasn't done any work on the old auditorium, so you can sleep in the auditorium if you want. So that night, all of us brought our sleeping bags into this old, what seemed haunted auditorium and just slept in the aisles. And it was very strange. I've also slept in the basement of a bowling alley one time. But, people on the show have heard my touring stories before. So I want to know yours. Like, what ridiculous things have happened on the road for you?
Well, when it comes to places to sleep, I don't even count those as really ridiculous. As a touring musician, there's never enough money. Motels and hotels, unless they're comped, they really just don't happen. You sleep wherever you can. And I do remember one night driving home really late from a solo gig in the mid-Hudson Valley. And it was 2:30 in the morning, 3. It was hunting season. And I remember thinking, oh, if I can just make it, Bear Mountain State Park is coming up pretty soon on the Taconic, Parkway. I'll just pull in there and get a sleep in the car for the night. And I couldn't see very well once I got in the park, and I did park the car somewhere, and I awoke in the morning. I slept in the back seat. It was hunting season, so there were other vehicles around the park. And I pulled into what I thought was a campsite, but I was just parked in the middle of the road, blocking traffic at this park. So I woke up to the sound of a ranger tapping on the window, and she leaned down and she said, "Hello, you are in a New York State park." As if perhaps I didn't speak English or she didn't want to startle me. And I sat up and said, oh, I'm so sorry. I was, coming to the office to pay my $13 or whatever. And so after that, I promised my parents I would never again sleep in my car. I would do something else anyway. But I have arrived in places. Once I arrived in Florida, and the person who was going to house me met me at the door and said, "I'm terribly sorry. I'm leaving. My best friend has died. Here's the key. Have a good week." And I was in Florida for the first time in Tampa, and I really didn't know anything about cockroaches, and they were everywhere. Anyway, that was a very interesting week. Little things like you can't just call somebody and say, "By the way, where's the garbage dumpster?" or how do I, open the garage door? We didn't have cell phones. So that alone is a whole separate story. In the old days, as I like to call them, we had landlines, and you would just call from home, and you'd take care of all these details before you left. And if details happened while you were away, you found out when you got there, as I did in the case with this guy. So then even answering machines were, late for me. That was a great revelation. You didn't have to stay home and listen for the phone to ring. And then eventually it was like cordless phones. You had more than a 6-foot radius around your telephone. You could actually go outside and still have a phone and take a call and call home and get messages. So that was totally freeing. But otherwise, and then there was still the pull into a payphone every night, check your phone messages to make sure everything was okay for wherever you were headed tomorrow night and the night after that. And you could actually roam without missing important calls. And with answering machines, you could even eat dinner without an interruption, because before that, you would answer every call because you didn't have caller ID. It could be the big gig. It could be the big one. So you didn't want to miss it. And then cell phones came along, and you could just talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere, with this brick in a box, I used to call it. And that really saved a lot of headaches. I mean, a lot of the best road stories happened before brick phones came along. I used to play every Wednesday night in the Adirondack Mountains around the Old Forge area. And it was through the winter, through the snowmobile season, that was probably the most exciting. But I also worked a day job, so I had to be back to go to work at 7:30 in the morning. So I'd play 9 to 1 or 10 to 2, probably 9 to 1, and then get in the car and drive home in my 1966 Dodge Dart. And this was like in the late 80s. It was an old car then. And I can remember one night in a terrible snowstorm driving home to Canton up Route 28 and trying to discern the sides of the road, just little reflectors, anything. And the car was just kind of floating. There was so much snow. You could feel it like a sleigh just drifting on top of the snow. And you hate to slow down because you're going to sink, and then you might not get started up again. There wasn't all-wheel drive back then either. At one point, I looked down, and the snow was packing in around the steering column, like around my foot pedals. And I knew that the snow was really deep and that I should not stop. Just keep driving. Made it home.
So this one time, one of the last tours I went on, I had fallen asleep in the back seat of the van. My friend Jeff was driving, and he was Definitely hopped up on Red Bull and cigarettes because that's how you get through a long drive. We were traveling, I think, from New York City to Utica. So it's like, what, 6 hours thereabouts? He was so convinced that he could make the final mile into Utica that he knew that we were on empty, but he was like, I'm not stopping. I need to get home. I am exhausted. And I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning because we were stopped. And I said, what's going on? And Jeff said, we ran out of gas. And so we called AAA because we had a AAA subscription. And they said, well, you're actually on the highway, so we're not going to come get you. We're going to send the highway. You have to call the highway department. So the highway department came out with a gas can, and they gave us, I think, 3 gallons of gas to get us on our way to the next gas station. And I think it cost us almost $200 for their services, something in that neighborhood. I could be exaggerating a little bit. But, of course, we found that a gas station was less than a half a mile away. So in all of the time that it took, we could have just walked to the gas station, walked back, and then gotten home. But we got to Jeff's place at like 7 a.m., and I think I slept for another 2 hours, and then I booked it back to Potsdam where I live. We're always doing that kind of stuff. It's just, I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit smarter about touring. This last tour that I went on was the most successful and the most fun I've ever been on. But still, every time you do something that's kind of stupid.
Car trouble. Well, there are more all-night things now than there ever used to be. That really severely curtailed night driving, unless you were on the thruway when you could get all-night fuel. But driving through the Adirondacks, you just couldn't back then. Let's say in the 1980s, there just wasn't anything open. And I used to play in a trio then, and we did drive north one night, and we were, as you just described, out of gas, or very nearly so. And we pulled into Tupper Lake. There was a Lumberjack Inn gas station. I don't think I've even been there since. I haven't stopped there. I've driven by it a lot. But it was under construction, and it wasn't as big as it is now. But there was a gas pump, and there was a little abode sort of attached to it. So we were looking for lights on anywhere, and there weren't any, except at this new Lumberjack Inn gas station. So we pulled in, and it was maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was a light on. And Stuart said, oh, there's a light on in the little living space. and we were wondering, maybe they'll open at 5. It's just an hour away. We can make it for an hour. We needed a bathroom. We needed fuel. I mean, food would have been great, but we would have been happy with the first 2. But we got the blow-by from Stuart, the blow-by-blow. Oh, there's a person in there. He's up. He's walking around. He's putting his pants on. I think he's putting a shirt on. Eventually, the gas station opened, and we fueled up, got on our way. But we knew we were going to be okay. It was just a matter of being stalled where we were. And I think we all had day jobs at the time that we needed to get home to.
I know for me, one of the most significant moments of my entire life as a touring musician, as a lifelong musician, was finally getting my music on vinyl in my hands. It felt so great to hold it. And I felt, okay, I know I'm not going to wrap it up. I know I'm going to keep doing this forever. But if I never did another thing, at least I have this vinyl record with my music on it. And I just felt so accomplished. I felt like I had made it. And of course, like, you keep playing and you keep learning new things, and that one achievement doesn't seem as gargantuan. But you had told me a story one time about getting a test pressing and annihilating it.
My first vinyl, yes. It was your story just brought mine back. Yes, I did receive my first test pressing. And the whole idea was you play it on your record player and see if you like the sound of it. And if you do, then you go ahead and tell the record company to press more of them, the next 500 or 1,000. And so I took my test pressing, and because I didn't have a record player, I thought, well, I'll just take this to my parents' home in Schenectady and put it on their record player. That'll give us a good idea. And that way I can share my first record with them. So I put the record carefully in my briefcase, because at that time I actually had a briefcase. It was a little traveling office, and I I put it on the floor of the back seat of my Volkswagen Squareback, a car I dearly loved, but it was nothing but trouble and constant repairs and breakdowns. But still, I loved this car. Anyway, I headed off for Schenectady through the Adirondacks. It was heating season, so I had the heat on, and I got to Tupper Lake, pulled into the quick stop. This is my usual spot to get fuel, and I think it's closed now. But anyway, I got to checking on my test pressing just to look at it and admire it again, and I picked up my briefcase, and it was very, very hot, and I opened the briefcase, and the test pressing was only in a paper sleeve, and it had gotten so hot that the test pressing had slumped down one side of the briefcase and up the other side like a taco shell that was a little bit uneven. And I was horrified. It's my new record. I haven't even listened to it yet. I was just devastated. But I am resourceful, so I put it back in the paper, the taco shell, as it were. I tried to straighten it as close to flat as I could get it without breaking it. And then I opened the engine compartment of my VW Squareback. They had a pancake engine in the back of the car. And I set the test pressing on top of the engine, thinking, okay, well, that's going to heat that baby up and it'll flatten it right out. So I drove another 100 miles, maybe 2. And when I got out and I took the record out, it had dirt and hair and dust and grit and so much stuff just embedded in all of the grooves, and it was so uneven. You couldn't keep a needle anywhere near it. It would just bounce all over. So I never, ever even got to hear that test pressing. It was a mess. It was just ruined. That's my first record story.
Okay, Barb, thanks a lot for coming in to share some tour stories with me. Let's go out on some songs.
I'd love to. Thank you so much, Ethan. For years, I struggled with how to end a performance that would convey to the audience how much I appreciated their showing up, being there, singing along. And finally, I just decided to write something that would say everything that I was thinking. And so this is the song, and I'll say goodnight with this one. It's called Goodnight, Goodbye. And if you want to sing along, the words are easy. Good night, goodbye, so long, farewell. Sorry, I have an out-of-tune string.
That's what happens.
Well, maybe you ramble and maybe you roam, and maybe you've been from the east to the west. Wherever you travel, be glad to come home, where the soul can find a refuge, the heart can find a rest. So good night, goodbye, so long and farewell. Here's wishing you a happiness, here's wishing you well. And here's one last song and one last tune, and here's wishing to see you all soon. We all have a hand in this world that we live in, a handful of wishes, it's a handful of dreams. We reach for the stars from the dust that we stand in, and settle for something that lies in between. So good night, goodbye, so long and farewell. Here's wishing you a happiness, here's wishing you well. And here's one last song and one last tune, So good night, goodbye, so long and farewell. Here's wishing you happiness, here's wishing you well. And here's one last song and one last tune. And here's wishing to see you all soon.
That's going to do it for this season of the Howl Podcast. I hope to see you all soon for more great stories recorded right here in the North Country. I'm Ethan Shantie. I write, produce, host, and edit this program. David Summerstein is my script supervisor. Bill Hanel is our director of digital services, and Anna Williams-Bergen is our digital project specialist who does everything social media related for the Howl. Thanks so much to famous letter writer of Plattsburgh for supplying our theme music. And don't forget to subscribe to the Howl newsletter at ncpr.org/subscribe. There you can find more stories from me and other folks in the North Country, plus great stories that I've found all over public radio and the internet. And you can submit your story to me too for a chance to be featured in the newsletter and an upcoming season of the podcast. Pitch your story to me, Ethan, at ncpr.org. You can also stay up to date with everything happening with live storytelling at ncpr.org/howl. And if you are so inclined, feel free to make a financial contribution to support everything that we do here at the Howl Podcast. Till next time, I'm Ethan Shantie. This is the Howl Podcast for North Country Public Radio.